因为我们养了好多狗和猫，养了40只猫中呢，有1只猫会开门。如果我没见过这只会开门的猫呢，那我就不知道猫还能够开门，它能跳起来把门把手。
Weiwei is one of China's most famous contemporary artists. He's also become one of its most outspoken domestic critics. He's using social media and the internet to really push forward this conversation about freedom of expression and individual rights in China, and that's definitely gotten him into some trouble over the last few years.
我觉得我是像一个下棋的人，对手走了一步，我走了一步。
He wants to shock you. When you see him drop a Neolithic pot, he's saying, I love the culture, but I want something new.
I think the most important media of our time is Twitter. 你普通人是有机会来改变公众的意见的。
In the early 2000s, Herzog and Demeron, who are a Swiss architecture team, were paired up with Weiwei, and one of the projects that they did together was enter the design competition for the Olympic Stadium. And the design that they entered, which is now very famously known as the Bird's Nest, ended up being selected as the winner. Weiwei was interviewed during the time of the Olympics. He certainly stood out as the only one of the major cultural figures to really speak out about the games.
I'm not for a kind of Olympics would force the migrants out of the city to tell the ordinary citizens should not participate, but to just make a fake smile for the foreigners and become purely party's propaganda, which is very scary.
He wants to talk about the individual dignity of life. And I think that that sort of outlook, coupled with bringing us all to the attention of, the power of social media and the internet, I think those two things are his legacy, and it's a vital part of the conversation of where China's headed.
This is what happens when the earth quakes.
In 2008, there was this massive earthquake in Sichuan province. It was a very traumatic moment for the whole nation. And he sort of latched onto the story of the children that had died in this tragedy.
喂，你好。你好。你是四川地震灾后重建办吗？对对对。我们希望知道更详细的关于学生死亡情况。你这些数据都是属于那个保密的。
The government wouldn't release the names, and the names were something that Weiwei wanted to work with. He put out a call on his blog, and he got dozens of volunteers who went to schools and to the homes and collected information about over 5,000 children who died.
We don't push, there's nothing happening.
The blog was shut down, surveillance cameras were installed on his doors, and it's been a series of escalating conflicts ever since.
就是在这样一个世界大灾难面前，如果没有人出来说话，我想这3年5年，我给大家不见面好一点。
Activist Han Zoren, who'd been doing very similar work, bringing attention to the school construction. People called it tofu construction. And he had been arrested, and he was on trial for incitement to subversion of state power. Weiwei, at the invitation of Han Zoren's lawyers, went out to Sichuan with a whole posse of his volunteers in order to testify at Tan's trial. He was hit on the head by one of the young cops, which later resulted in him going into emergency brain surgery. They also kept him in his hotel for about 12 hours, long enough so that he was not able to attend the trial. Clearly, he has all this documentation of the night in question, and yet the local authorities in Chengdu refused to acknowledge that anything happened that night. Essentially, he's thwarted at every juncture. And as you see him doing this, you understand sort of the dogged nature of what his work is about.
我觉得乐观不乐观，就是还是因为你对生命是不是还有兴奋感，还是对他人是不是还是有好奇心，还是不是还能觉得有其他的可能？那么从这些角度来说，我是非常乐观的。
The system is stacked against him, but the idea that he goes through it in order to shed a light on that, that's precisely what it's about. He's saying, I'm not going to lie down, I'm going to at least do my duty to fight It's for people in China and the rest of the world to kind of see how the system works. And so in a way, I really do see that also as very much an artistic endeavor. And that's kind of what the film's about and what his life is about as it continues on.